All of these things. The person is dead. He's completely dead. No respiratory signs. No proof of any evidence of a pulse. Stiffened. He's gone through the 3 forms of rigor. He's gone very hard and he can't move any of his limbs. Then he goes soft. Then he's gone hard and he can't move his limbs. And then he goes soft. Then he goes hard again. And then you start to get the full macular degeneration where the blood by this time has stopped circulating. You start to get that smell and all these other things start to happen. And he comes, he says some words of Allah and a benediction, heals that person, and they come out. They still have their burial sheet over their shoulder. These are things that are manifest to make people remember, to make people understand. So when they see those things, because the Prophet Isa alayhi salam, when people were seeing those things, then they were listening to what he was saying. Because in the beginning, they weren't listening to what he was saying. So when he's bringing these signs, they listen, they hear what he's saying, they ponder on what he's saying, and then they believe. And this is what happened. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, obviously being the first prophet, the last one sent, first prophet created, last one sent. When you look at his example, he's doing all these things. He's healing lepers. He's raising dead. He's filling water skins with water that's coming out of his hands and feeding 1,000 people. Feeding 1,000 people from loaves of bread that he snapped in half and it becomes 4. Then he snaps it in half, it becomes 8. Then 16. And you know the math, you know about these things. And then all of a sudden it's just gone out of control and people are eating it and carrying away big stacks of it. Or he's ripping strips of meat in half and it becomes 2. Then it becomes 4. Then it becomes 8. Then it becomes 16. And you know the math and it carries on. Right? He's doing these things. He's handing someone in battle. One of the battles he was in, the companion said, I've broke my sword. I have nothing to defend myself with. The Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam hands him a stalk of wood. He says, what should I do with this? He said, believe on Allah and use this. And he mentioned the name of Allah and it became a sword. So these are the things that are being done because prophets miraculously do these miracles, these mu'jizat. The wali of Allah has the karramat, the wonder. Now there's a difference between a mu'jiza, a miracle, and a karramah, a wonder. The mu'jiza is done by the Prophet. And it stuns and incapacitates and befuddles and confounds people. Doesn't make any sense. How could he have done this? There's got to be some logical scientific explanation for this. There is. Allah who created him gave him these things. There's your scientific explanation. Right? This is what happens. The karramah is different. The karramah, the wonder, is what happens to the wali through his belief in Allah, sincere following of the particular prophet of his age, and it is a continuation of the mu'jiza of that particular prophet. It's not from himself. If a wali says, I have karramat and they're from me, he's lying. Because the karramah is not from himself. You get some people that say, yes, if there's a sheikh that if you go to him and you touch his hand or you drink the water that you'll have a child. And if he attributes that to himself, that man is a huckster, he's a liar. Now the conditions for someone being a wali, or saint or a righteous person of Allah have been delineated by Sheikh Abdul Qadir Al-Jilani, Imam Muhyiddin, Baha'uddin and others. And they are the following. Number one is he has the authentic creed. His creed is the creed of Muslim orthodoxy. Cultists don't have saints. They don't have saints. I don't care how righteous the Ahmadi is. He's not a saint. So his creed is the creed of Muslim orthodoxy. Number one, he lives by the revealed law of his particular prophet. He lives by the revealed law of his particular prophet. So whether it's in the time of the Prophet Isa alayhi salam or the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and thereafter, he lives by that revelation. You won't meet someone that says, I believe in Allah, la ilaha illallah, Muhammad Rasulullah, and he doesn't believe that Salah is part of Islam. Or he doesn't believe that the Qur'an is the speech of Allah. Or he doesn't believe the Sunnah is part of Islam. Yes, he's a wali of Allah. No, he's not. He's a wali of shaitan. No, he's not. The third point is that the actual karramah, the actual wonder, it happens to him and he doesn't attribute it to itself, to himself, or herself in this case, because they're female banis. Nafisa at-Tahira. But I'm saying himself because I'm talking from a normative standpoint. So it's not necessary that, well, this person is a wali of Allah, but he doesn't recognize my sheikh, or he's not from my clique, or he's not from my gang, or he's not from my set, or he's not from Oakland, he's not from Frisco, he's not from Inglewood, he's not from here. That's nothing to do with it. There's nothing to do with it. Nafisa at-Tahira had no tariqah, but she had numerous karramat. Right? Karramat, as I said, the wali doesn't attribute it to himself. I'll give you one very quickly before our time of break. Imam Muwafaquddin ibn Qudama rahimahullah was walking with someone, and they were on the way to the masjid for Fajr. And they had made wudu along the way. But Imam Muwafaquddin ibn Qudama rahimahullah believed that the water that they had used was either musta'mal, it was used water for the wudu, or there was some najis that had gone into the water, because it was under qullatain, it was under 216 liters. And he was concerned that his wudu wouldn't be valid. They'd get to the masjid, he'd have to remake his wudu, and he'd possibly miss the first takbir. Not that he'd miss salah, but he'd miss the first takbir behind the imam. That's how concerned he was. So what did he do? He said, wait here. And he walked across Lake Tiberias, made wudu on the other side, and walked back across Lake Tiberias. When the person with him saw this, Imam Muwafaquddin looked at him as if to say, what? Because he didn't attribute it to himself. It was we have to go. He said, are we going to the masjid? Imam Muwafaquddin rahimahullah was pushing him to say, are we going to the masjid? He wasn't saying, did you see what I just did? Did you see that? I'll do it again. Did you see what I just did? It happens Monday and Thursdays too. He didn't do that. You see, that wali, he doesn't attribute those things to himself. And this is mentioned in Tabaqat al-Hanabila and other books where these incidents have occurred. Where there was someone once that Imam Muwafaquddin ibn Qudama rahimahullah, they had a great amount of love for Imam Muwafaquddin, one person. And he wanted to give 400 dirhams to him in charity. He wanted to give 400 dirhams in charity. But he kept always forgetting to do it. He kept forgetting to do it. He kept forgetting to do it. And one day he came by the house of Imam Muwafaquddin ibn Qudama rahimahullah, and he found him and the chest was open. And it was his chest. And there were 400 dirhams inside. And Imam Muwafaquddin ibn Qudama rahimahullah, he just looked at him, he said, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. He said, actions are only by intentions. Now he didn't say, oh, did you know that such and such brought this here, or this angel or Khidr brought it here? Don't you know how this happened? You should understand this. He didn't go into that. To show him this is what is done. This understood. What you've intended has been done. Allah's accepted. He's given it. So the wali is not putting out the hand to be kissed. But some people might. The wali is not looking, hey, he's not standing up in the back when I come in the room. When I came in the room, stand up for the sheikh. He said, no, he's not standing up. What's he doing? Or she's not standing up. Or she's not letting me pat her head, or he's not letting me pat his head. That's not what the walis are looking at. So it's important to understand this, that when these prophets have these miracles, it's to confound, to beleaguer, to completely overthrow people's normal consciousness of what they think is normal, whereas the wali is a continuation of that prophet's miracle. أقول قولي هذا استغفر الله لي ولكم أستغفر الله إن الله غفور رحيم يرحم الراحمين. Inshallah, we will break here for Maghrib, and inshallah return after. Alhamdulillah. Salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. Imam Ibn Al-Jawzi rahimahullah, he then says, quote, and so when the Exalted One says, and they said, our hearts are locked. Firstly, let us mention that the vast majority of scholars recite the expression as ghulf, meaning that it is recited with a silent lam. Some recite it as ghulf. Now, whoever should recite it as ghulf, as Zujaj has said, then it means that their heart is covered in layers of seals. But whoever should recite it as ghuluf, where the lam has a dhamma on it, then it is the plural of ghilaf, which means our hearts are enveloped in veils that keep them away from the knowledge. So, this makes it impossible for them to understand the knowledge, so how can they comprehend it? What they are saying in this ayah is that their hearts are fleeing from the knowledge. It's as if they're saying, in this regard, we don't understand anything. It is as if you are speaking in the second statement regarding this, it is as if they're saying, if your words were true, our hearts would not have rejected it. Close quote. So they're saying there's 2 points regarding saying our hearts are locked or they're sealed. One is that they mean by this that we don't understand what you're saying. The knowledge has been locked away from our hearts. It's been taken away. But the second statement is, if what you were coming with was the truth, our hearts wouldn't have rejected it. And that's not true. Because sometimes your hearts can reject things that are true. You know that you need to stop drinking. You know you do. But you reject it because there's a party around you, there's people around you, there's certain environmental circumstances. You know that you shouldn't beat your wife, but you still do it because, well, she gets out of line and then I lose my temper, so what can I do? And you don't go to counseling, and you know that that's the way that'll stop you from beating your wife, right? Because you still have some part of you that still is a wife beater. That part inside of you hasn't come out. You know that you shouldn't gamble, but you do because you still think, well, inshallah, if I win, I'll give a portion in charity and that will purify my wealth. And there are people who piously and sincerely think that, yeah, if I win the 300 million jackpot and I give, let's say, 10 million, then that should purify the wealth. And inshallah, I'll use some of it to build a masjid. It's not like I'm just going to keep it all to myself. But that's foolishness. But that's the thing. So sometimes your heart can reject things that are true, even though it's the truth. Imam Ibn Al-Jawzi rahimahullah, he then says, as for the statement of the Exalted One, little is it that they believe. There are 5 points of wisdom to take from this. One is that there are few people among the Jews that truly believe, as stated by Ibn Abbas and Qatada. Secondly is that there's very little that they truly believe in. Mu'ammar said, they believe in very little of what is in their hands, and they disbelieve in most of it. The third is that it's referring to the fact that they don't believe in a little or a lot, only portions. Ibn al-Ambari has said, this is the way that the Arabs will say things, that when someone believes in a little bit of something or a lot, when someone does not believe in a little bit or a lot of something, they will say, little is it that they accept. Just like when the Arabs say, I've not seen anyone like this man, it means they've not seen anyone like him before. Fourth wisdom that we should learn is that they believe in very little of that which they've been given at the time. Don't you remember the similarity between the words of the Exalted One? آمنوا بالذي أنزل على الذين آمنوا وجه النهار. Believe in that which was sent down to those who believe in the beginning part of the day, but rejected in the later part of the day. Surah Al Imran, the 3rd surah, ayah 72. The fifth wisdom is that their iman is little. As mentioned by Ibn Jarir al-Tabari, and the what that is used in this ayah has two wisdoms at it. One is that it increases in the stringency of the negation. And secondly, all of the things that have been mentioned in ayat before are being negated by this word ma. What or not.